Shadows and secrets. Zara eyed Leo with a skepticism honed by years of navigating the treacherous streets of Nova Prime. Trust was a scarce commodity in this megacity, and the man who had just emerged from the shadows offered little to inspire it. "How can I be sure you're not just another cog in the regime's machine?" she countered, her voice rough with pain and exhaustion. Leo, his features obscured by the flickering light from his datapad, raised his hands in a placating gesture. "Understandable," he conceded. "The Directorate's grip might seem absolute, but whispers of defiance still echo through the underbelly. We are the Shadows, Zara, those who resist the suffocating control. We believe in the same things, a future free from tyranny." He gestured towards a dark corner of the maintenance room. "There's a hidden passage behind that panel," he explained. "It leads to the undercity, a labyrinthine network of tunnels beneath the gleaming chrome towers. It's a dangerous haven, but the only way to evade immediate capture." Zara glanced down at her ankle, the throbbing a constant reminder of the warehouse shootout. It twisted at an unnatural angle, her escape a reckless dash on borrowed time. "Even if I reach the undercity, I won't last long on a sprained ankle." "The Resistance has allies there," Leo said, his voice gaining a reassuring firmness. "People who can treat your injuries and offer safe passage. But every second wasted here increases the risk of your capture. The Directorate's bloodhounds are relentless." Zara knew he was right. The data chip felt heavy in her hand, a tangible weight of Project Exodus and all it represented, humanity's last hope for escape from the suffocating smog of Nova Prime. Kai's face flashed in her mind, his defiant stance against the searchlights fueling her determination. This wasn't just about survival anymore, it was about carrying his torch, his sacrifice. Taking a deep breath, the pain momentarily forgotten, Zara forced a nod. "All right, Leo. Lead the way." Their descent through the service tunnel was a treacherous dance with darkness. The stale air grew thick with the stench of damp earth and forgotten waste. Leo's datapad cast spidery beams of light, barely enough to navigate the uneven steps and crumbling brickwork. With each step, a fresh wave of pain radiated from her ankle, forcing Zara to lean heavily on the wall for support. "Are you sure you can manage?" Leo asked, a flicker of concern in his voice. "I have to." Zara gritted her teeth, channeling Kai's unwavering spirit. For Kai, for everyone forced to choke on the Directorate's fumes. Their journey seemed to stretch into an eternity. Finally, they reached a hidden door disguised as a loose brick in the wall. With a click and a hiss that sounded magnified in the oppressive silence, the door swung open, revealing a narrow passage that plunged into an even deeper abyss. "This is it," Leo said, handing her a small headlamp. "The undercity labyrinth is vast and unpredictable. You'll need this to navigate." Zara fumbled with the headlamp, clicking it on. The weak beam of light sliced through the blackness, illuminating a rough-hewn tunnel barely wide enough for one person at a time. "There's a safe house a few clicks from here," Leo said, pointing to faint markings etched on the wall. "Follow these arrows. They'll lead you there." He paused, his gaze intense. "Remember, Zara," he said, his voice dropping to a low murmur, "the undercity is a lawless place. While there are those who fight for freedom, others exist only for their own survival. Be wary of strangers." Zara nodded, her heart heavy with gratitude. "Thank you, Leo. I won't forget this." With a final nod, Leo slipped back into the service tunnel, the door hissing shut behind him. Zara stood alone, the weight of responsibility settling squarely on her shoulders. Injured, venturing into the unknown depths of the undercity, she held onto the single guiding light, the data chip that held the key to a rebellion's hope and a potential future for a dying humanity. Echoes in the dark. The tunnel walls squeezed in around Zara, their dampness chilling her to the bone. The headlamp's weak beam barely penetrated the oppressive darkness, a meager candle struggling against the vastness of the undercity. Each step sent a jolt of pain through her injured ankle, making her progress agonizingly slow. The silence, broken only by the rhythmic drip of water somewhere ahead and the ragged gasps of her own breath, pressed in on her like a physical weight. Hours seemed to crawl by as Zara pushed forward, fueled by sheer willpower and the flickering image of Kai etched in her memory. The markers on the wall, glowing faintly in the headlamp's beam, were her only guide. The promise of a safe haven spurred her on, a beacon of hope in this suffocating darkness. Suddenly, a flicker of movement in the distance caught her eye. It was a fleeting glimpse, a shadow dancing just beyond the reach of the headlamp's light. Her heart hammered against her ribs, adrenaline surging through her veins. Years of living on the streets had honed her instincts, and every fiber of her being screamed caution. Then, a guttural growl echoed through the tunnel, sending chills down her spine. Before Zara could react, a hulking silhouette emerged from the shadows. The creature was unlike anything she had ever encountered in the harsh world above. A grotesquely mutated scavenger, a product of generations exposed to the toxic waste dumped into the undercity. Its razor-sharp claws glinted in the dim light, and its eyes, glowing an unnatural red, reflected the fear that threatened to consume her. Panic threatened to overwhelm her, but Zara fought it back. Leo's words echoed in her mind. Strangers in the undercity were not to be trusted. This creature was most definitely a stranger, a nightmare born from the very pollution the Directorate inflicted upon them all. With a deep breath, she remembered the rudimentary self-defense training she'd received as a child. She wouldn't go down without a fight. Grasping for a weapon, her hand brushed against the metal container strapped to her thigh. It was a small canister of compressed air, scavenged from a derelict maintenance drone. It wasn't much, but it was all she had. Taking a deep breath, Zara braced herself. The scavenger let out another guttural growl, taking a lumbering step towards her. In that split second, she knew her only chance was a surprise attack. Crouching low, she channeled all her remaining strength and lunged forward, aiming the air canister at the creature's exposed chest and pushing the trigger. A deafening hiss filled the tunnel as the compressed air blasted the scavenger, momentarily pushing it back. The creature roared in outrage, but the unexpected attack seemed to momentarily stun it. Zara didn't waste a second. Using the momentary reprieve, she scrambled back, her ankles screaming in protest. The tunnel split into 3 narrow passages ahead, all shrouded in darkness. Without hesitation, she darted into the one furthest from the scavenger, her headlamp light desperately searching for the next marker on the wall. The pounding of her heart echoed in her ears, her ragged breath scraping against the raw air. The scavenger's enraged shrieks followed her down the tunnel, a chilling reminder of the danger that still lurked behind. But she couldn't stop. Every agonizing step was a desperate plea for survival, a fight for the future Kai had sacrificed for.